Welcome to the launch of Guilford's new Affordable Housing Commission. I'm Christy Ruminants, the acting chair, and I'm delighted to introduce you to our new commissioners who are scattered throughout the room. They'll be available to touch base with. They together bring a broad range of experience and expertise to the table, as well as a lot of enthusiasm. Speaking for all, we are excited to see so many of you here at our first public community conversation on housing affordability in Guilford. This evening, through presentation and discussion, we will frame the past, present, and future of how Guilford is addressing the very real problems and challenges created by increasing home costs and the Commission's new role in supporting the town in meeting those challenges. Our program tonight will begin with Dr. Alexander Hoffman, who will frame the problem we face and give us a look back at what Guilford has accomplished to date. And then David Fink, a consultant to South Central Regional Council of Governments, will provide a regional overview and solutions other towns have adopted. And finally, I will preview the Commission's work in supporting the town's goals. But before all that, let's hear from our first selectman, Matt Hoey.
Thank you, Christy. I also want to thank the volunteers who've decided to put their lives on the line and start working to get affordable housing more ubiquitous in our community. Also, Christy, thank you very much for the work you've done chairing this as co-chair with Sandy, I think, but interim chair, so thank you very much for what you've done. This is a crisis that is facing every community in the state of Connecticut, the ability for folks to secure affordable housing in general, affordable housing in particular. And that affordable is a wide-ranging term. I'm sure you'll hear from David Fink, one of my mentors, about what affordable housing really means. It could be workforce, it could be middle housing, it could be straight-up affordable housing that we all recognize when we hear that term. I also want to say that we have gotten some credit. David is one of those who says we've been doing things in this community for some time, and we have. I want to thank where's Liza? I know she's in the room somewhere. I thought I saw her. The Guilford Foundation, who put together a video back, I think, in 2014, 2015, with some volunteers like Mary Jo and Sandy, who wound up as chair of the ad hoc Affordable Housing Committee, which resulted in us securing an affordable housing developer for the Woodruff property. Now, government works at a glacial pace. That was 2015, 2019. I think we actually selected the developer, and we're still waiting for them to break ground. So while we want this to happen quickly, we need to be patient because we know it takes some time, but we are trying to get there. Affordable housing has been something that's been very important to me for a variety of reasons, some of them personal. And if anybody wants to talk, I can tell you about a story today. But it has been something we have focused on throughout the past 7 years that I've had the privilege of working in this capacity. And we've done some things that I think are pretty innovative. And not everybody agrees with them, but last year we recodified our zoning code, and in it we included something known as inclusionary zoning, which means any development based on our criteria over 5 units will require a set-aside for affordable housing. On top of that, we had the Board of Selectmen had put together a tax abatement program for affordable home ownership. We currently have two families that are taking advantage of an abatement, which allows them to purchase a piece of property and afford up to, the 30% of their income as a max for their expenses for their household. So we are providing an abatement for those whose costs exceed that 30%. And there's a third application in front of us right now, and I'm really happy to say that will probably be approved over the next couple of weeks. We also included in an economic development incentive package for developers, where the increase in taxes based on the growth of the grad list on any particular project that a developer brings into this community. Typically that's commercial, but we also have a carve-out that includes affordable housing, particularly for those who are building them for rental purposes. So I've gone on for far too long, I'm sorry. You said brief, right? But I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight, because this is an issue that probably will affect everybody in some form or fashion, family member, friend, or whatever. But it also talks about what our community is made of, the people that we want to be able to live and enjoy what we have in this community and continue to have. So I look forward to hearing the presentation, as all of you are, and thank you very much.
So, Matt, you should love my presentation, because I'm going to be saying a lot of the same thing. We did not coordinate. So, I'm Alex Hoffman. I'm here to frame the issue that we're all going to be talking about tonight. We are in the midst of a housing affordability crisis. This is a national issue, it's a regional issue, and it's a local issue. It's not a partisan political issue. There are no partisan political causes. There are no partisan political impacts. What it means is basically the cost of all types of housing have skyrocketed. This is not a new problem, but it is a problem that got much worse since the Great Recession, and it's gotten worse still since the COVID pandemic. This is a problem, as Matt said, I could say as Matt said about 10 times. As Matt said, this is a problem that affects all kinds of households. It affects young adults who are looking for their first rental. It affects young families that are looking for a starter home. It affects members of our Guilford workforce, people who work around the green and around town, who would like to live in the community that they are already contributing to. It affects first-time home buyers who are looking to live in Guilford. It affects growing families that are looking for larger homes, and seniors who are looking to downsize. It affects all kinds of households. And we know why people want to move to Guilford. We know why people want to stay in Guilford. I'll bet everyone in this room loves Guilford. We love the green. We love our beautiful library. We love our schools and our restaurants and our shops and our neighborhoods and our streets and our open spaces and our proximity to New Haven and our proximity to Boston and to New York City. We love Guilford. We know why so many people want to stay here and want to come here. And yet, we don't build homes here in Guilford anymore. In the 70s and 80s, we built approximately 2,000 homes each decade. And in the 2010s, we built under 500. The best number that I can find is 318 in a whole decade. And yet, since 2010, 42% of Guilford households moved in. Now, some of them moved within Guilford, but a lot of them newly came to Guilford. There is a demand to live in Guilford, and we're not building new homes. So what happens? Prices skyrocket. This is just the last 3 years. This is median average sale price over a bunch of 6-month periods. The prices just go up. And it's been even worse for renters. So all this means that Guilford is changing. As Matt said, as the price of housing goes up, who can afford to move here? Who can afford to stay here? Who can afford to come back? Our adult children, can they afford to come back to Guilford? The kinds of homes that people are living in at different points in their life are changing because the cost of housing, rent, mortgage, basic utilities, it's just going up. To date, I don't need to get into this that much because Matt mentioned it. We have a few senior and handicapped housing sites that has made a dent in those problems, but we all know seniors that are looking for an appropriate place to downsize. We hear it all the time. I just got email from someone this week about this. We have been working on this, quote, affordable housing. That's workforce housing. That's not low-income housing. That's households with below average income for this area, but not truly low income. And we have been doing a few things there. We are hopeful, Matt, that maybe in the next 6 months we will break ground on the Woodward property. It's fingers and toes crossed. That is a development on Stonehouse Lane. And there has been construction around Guilford. There has been some. It's not zero, but not enough. The efforts to date have not been proportionate to the problems that we face in terms of the cost of housing. So, again, as Matt said, we had a Guilford Affordable Housing Committee, an ad hoc committee. This was basically started by work by the Guilford Foundation, the Partnership for Strong Communities, to set up a study and a state grant. Thank you, Guilford Foundation. Thank you, Partnership for Strong Communities. Now, this was a subcommittee of the EDC, the Economic Development Committee, and they focused on that workforce housing, that quote, affordable housing term. And the committee looked for sites to develop, and that work was helped by state grants. And we adopted an affordable housing plan just 2 years ago. Now, this was a mandate that every town in our state had to do, and we did it on time. Not all towns did. This is a report that is downloadable from the town website, from our webpage, and it looks at the needs and the supply for housing here in Guilford. It's a plan, so it looks to the future. For example, it calls for, quite clearly, the creation of additional housing at multiple price points. That's key. Multiple price points. It calls for, as Matt said, zoning changes, and we passed some zoning changes last year to support the development of additional housing at multiple price points. This is work that we need to keep doing so that we ensure that our zoning ordinances meet our needs as a community. And a call for the establishment of a housing commission. So here we are, thank you for coming. This is the Guilford Affordable Housing Commission, not committee. This is a more permanent commission, and we were just formed a couple months ago. We are not the housing authority, though we have representatives of the housing authority here today. We are not maintaining or running housing, and we're not maintaining waiting lists for housing. Rather, it is our role to help the town to strategize and to position itself to develop the range of housing that we need here in our community at a variety of price points. The most important thing that this new commission will ever do is listen. This is fundamental to our work. And so we want to know what you think. So we have built into tonight's program 2 discussion and listening periods. We ask that you turn to your neighbors around you, maybe get into small groups of 3 or 4, turn around in your seats. Hopefully there's someone you don't know. And we are going to ask you to discuss 3 questions for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I am going to facilitate, I'm going to ask for volunteers to share some of the major ideas that came out of that discussion. It was going to be Karen Stevens, but unfortunately her family's had a medical emergency, so I'm filling in for her. So our 3 questions for our first discussion period is, how is our community impacted by this issue of housing affordability? What do you guys think? How are we and the people we know impacted by this issue of housing affordability? And what do we want the town to do about this issue of housing affordability? Again, 5 or 10 minutes. the major themes that came up in your group's discussion? Someone is comfortable volunteering? Please. And can you share your name? And you live here in Guilford?
Yes.
Libby, can you share a couple of the major themes?
Sure. We talked about, we talked about a lot of the different types of housing that most small towns, we're not small a town, I wouldn't call us Chester's a small town, I don't call us a small town. But the different types of housing that are happening more in European countries, things that are more progressive, things like co-housing, things that give, say, seniors opportunity to live with younger people, mixed age group housing, those sorts of things, instead of always thinking about senior housing and this type of housing and this type of person.
Truly more mixed housing.
Yeah.
Truly more mixed housing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the ability to downsize has really evaporated in this town. We've been here my entire life and sort of on that teetering edge of, you know, maybe I don't want to take care of my yard anymore and I want to have time to do other things as I get older, and those things are not in this town. There's nowhere for someone like me to go and all my contemporaries. So, and I was telling the group here that I have, 5 single women friends who are all affording their own places, and we're constantly saying to each other, why are we doing this by ourselves? Why are we not trying to build some sort of co-housing community where you can have your space and you can have community and build communities within our larger community?
Thank you.
I sort of steered everybody that way.
Thank you, Libby. Can I get another volunteer? Yes, in the middle.
I worked at
And your name?
Bud Hurley,
And you live here in Guilford?
yes, all my life. And I went to school in Guilford, graduated in 1968 with Larry Santa Maria.
So can you share a couple of the themes that you guys discussed?
I worked with my late father. I mixed cement, and he, did work in Bradford. Out in Bradford past the hospice, the new hospice. And then after that, I worked for Stop and Shop for 28 years, and I got a pension there. And I'm concerned about housing. I'm living at Green Grove right now, but I would like to move on. And I'd like to travel and stuff. And I go, thanks to Matt Hoey got the airport expansion, and that makes a difference for economic growth in our country.
Thank you. Can I get another volunteer to share a couple of the themes that their group discussed? Yes?
Hi, Faith Verstowski. We talked about a lot. One was the need for people who are older to have a place to live that they can afford. That 43% of our population left in order for the 43% to come. And
Pretty close, yeah.
those are the people that created Guilford, so they're not here anymore. Even
That's a
the
good
people,
point.
the people that are here that may need to move away, everything is expensive everywhere. So our young people who are working, they're not making the numbers that you're showing.
They're not.
The number to move into an affordable housing place is not a realistic number for what our people in the entry market is. And the other thing was a little bit, I had an example of, there's a place called Friends Center for Children in New Haven. It'd be worth the commission's time to go visit. They have built teacher housing, which has allowed them to get a lower income wage and have a place to live. It would be a great model for our incoming firefighters, police officers, and other workers in town. And I don't know if anybody has anything else to say about it.
So,
We have someone else that wanted to say something.
yes, so we have time for one more volunteer. If we're not able to get to you, we are going to flash our email address on the slide at the very end, and we do want to hear from you. So please feel free to email us. Pete, you were pointing to, yes.
I'm in Eager, live in Guilford as well. Our concern was that as prices go up, it's more and more of a white homogeneous society, and that is a detriment. And the people who work here, whether it's in a store or police officer, teachers, everything, they cannot live here. They only work here, and that doesn't allow them to become part of the community, and that's another great loss.
Losing economic diversity in our town, yeah. I guess one more. Someone on the other side of the room, maybe? Yes, in the back.
Hi, Rob Federici, 230 Village Pond. We talked about a lot of the themes that others have mentioned, but one thing we really touched on the end is, the balance between green space and developed use space, and putting a little of my own emphasis on it here. But one thing I think, if we're really going to achieve that density necessary to build up enough housing, we need to have a serious conversation about bringing sewers into the town, because we're just not going to be able to maintain that green space that I think everyone in this room loves.
It's a huge
to take
issue.
advantage of.
The infrastructure, yeah.
But without that infrastructure to really have that dense housing, whether it's townhomes, apartments,
That's an
whatever.
excellent point, yeah. One more? From the super group? No? Yes.
Hi, my name is Kayla Donato. I actually don't live in Guilford, but my husband grew up in Guilford for 27 years.
I was on the old committee.
Thank you for coming back.
And I work in the affordable housing space. I work for the Partnership for Strong Communities. And so in our group, one of the things that we were talking about, we echoed concerns about socioeconomic diversity, racial diversity, and how it's important to creating bright and vibrant communities, and that by having housing prices so high, that really prevents accessibility. And we also talked about something that you mentioned during your presentation, which was about building all types of housing and housing at many price points. And that's really important because statewide in Connecticut, we know that there's a shortage of affordable housing for extremely low-income folks, but there's also a shortage of housing at higher incomes, and that creates like a lot of pressure in the middle because everyone is competing for housing that is, affordable. Some people are paying a lot, and then of course sometimes you don't want to pay the most you can pay for housing. You want to be able to have time for travel, time to do your hobbies. So building a diversity of housing is really important because the more housing we have, the less pressure there is and the more choice that.
And that's again at a variety of price points, right?
Yes, yeah, at a variety of price points, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Again, if we didn't hear from you now, we do want to hear from you in the future. Please feel free to email us. But now I want to hand things off to David Fink.
Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back here. I was here 10 years ago standing in this spot and working then for the Partnership for Strong Communities, and it's great to see some old friends. I timed this at home 3 times, about 16 minutes to get through this, and then we'll take some questions. But like Alex said, if we don't get to your questions, there'll be an email address. Send the questions in and we'll get them answered, okay? So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview and then we'll get to what other towns are doing, because sometimes that's a really good way to get you thinking about what things can be done here in town. What I won't do is tell Guilford what to do. I never tell towns what to do. I will tell you, like I said, what other towns are doing. I think that's the best way to move ahead. I've always called the housing a tap water issue. Why? Because when I get up in the morning to wash my face and brush my teeth, I turn on the water and there's the water, and I have no idea how it got there. And that's the way it is with housing. Most people have no idea how housing gets created proactively because they can generally find what they need and they can generally afford it. Most state and national polls I've ever seen, 85–90% of people are satisfied with their housing situation. So they don't think about it, it's just there for them. But that's not the case, and it's changed, as Alex said, starting in 2010, when a lot of baby boomers started looking to retire and downsize, and a lot of their millennial children with huge education debt started getting into marrying childbearing years and suddenly couldn't afford a house. And they all wanted multifamily housing, and very, very few towns in the state had it. And so 2010 was a big year for that. And then, of course, the pandemic, and we'll get into that. Bottom line is, for all of you, and thank you for coming, it's a good idea if you familiarize yourself now with housing. Don't feel ashamed you don't know anything about it. I know a lot of you do, because I know a lot of you. But if you don't, that's okay. I didn't know anything about it before I got into it. I was a newspaper guy for 27 years, and then I learned about housing. But you need to familiarize yourself with stuff about housing that's real, not the myths and misconceptions. So, as Alex said, skyrocketing prices from 2019 until 2023, from before the pandemic until now. Single-family prices up about 60%, maybe even more in the last year. That pushed a lot of people at the lower end of the income spectrum into the rental market because they couldn't compete. That drove rental prices up more than 20% in the rental market, and the ripple effect continued to people at the low end of the income spectrum. The rental market pushed them into homelessness. So 2 years ago, homelessness rose by 13%, last year by 3%, this year up again another 13%. The idea of being cost burdened. Some of you may have had parents like me. My parents told me when I first got my first apartment, they said, don't spend more than 25% of your income on housing, on rent, because you need some money left over for food and clothing and health care and child care and transportation. HUD puts it at 30%. The problem is in Connecticut, housing prices are so high that 48% of renters, approximately, and 30% of homeowners are burdened by their housing costs. They're spending more than 30% of their income on housing, and that's bad for them. It's bad for local merchants. It's bad for the state sales tax coffers because they just don't have as much disposable income. And it's roughly the same here in Guilford. Single family, multifamily, most of the state, most of the nation is about 2/3 single family, 1/3 multifamily. Here in Guilford, you're skewed, like a lot of towns, don't feel ashamed, 89% or so single family, and it's because of the way housing got built, and we'll get into that in a second. Overall, income restricted units and other units that are guaranteed to remain affordable in the state, 6.4%, a bit lower here in Guilford. The median home sales price is up a little higher, I found, on Zillow than Alex had on his slide. As of the end of July, $649,000 median sales price in Guilford. If you go by the old Fannie Mae calculus, where they said a third of your, you need to make at least a third of the sales price every year in order to afford it. So someone would have to, by that, make close to $220,000 to afford the median sales price home in Guilford. The median gross rent in 2020 was about $1,500. Since then, we can pretty much safely assume it's up to about $2,000. $2,000, if you're spending 30%, that means you're making $7,000 a month. Multiplied by 12 is $84,000 in order to afford the median gross rental price in Guilford. $84,000, where I come, is still a lot of money. So why did this happen? Well, 2/3 of municipalities in the state were rural. And beginning in 1970, when baby boomers like me decided to get married and buy a home, a builder would buy a 40-acre cornfield. Sorry, my phone, for some reason, is ringing. A builder would buy a cornfield of 40 acres and go to the zoning commission and say, I want to put up 40 single-family homes. And the town would say, great. And he'd build them in 18 months, and he'd sell them in about 6 months. And that's how towns developed in the state. So that 2/3 of the towns in the state built 40% or more of their housing beginning in 1970. And as a result, 2/3 of the towns in the state have 70% or more single-family homes, which was great until 2010, when those stars aligned and suddenly we needed a lot of multifamily housing that towns simply don't have. In other words, we don't have enough supply, and for all of your economics 101 students, when you have too little supply and too much demand, it pushes the price up, and that's where we are. That's what's real. What's not real, and you need to remember this, and I can explain this in the Q&A session, is a lot of people say we can't have multifamily housing because it increases school enrollments. Not true. The research shows it's not true. The anecdotal evidence says it's not true. That it lowers property values. Also not true. That it brings crime. Also not true. That it causes traffic that's unmanageable. Not true. You can manage traffic. and that supposedly it's ugly because people imagine, based on what they've seen on TV and the propaganda, that all multifamily housing looks like the worst experiments in multifamily housing post-war, like Cabrini Green and Pruitt-Igoe and Pottapanic Village and Bridgeport. Here are some pictures just to show you. This is Hubbard Woods in your town, and Great Hill, the new cottages here. This is in Madison, the new project that Hope Partnership, I think, did. Beautiful. New Canaan, this is mixed income housing in New Canaan. These are all upper income or middle to upper income communities that have created this. This is Avon, Stonington, Farmington, Brookfield, Darien. I put this one in. This is a former nursing home that Garden Homes refitted and repurposed for multifamily housing. That's what a lot of towns are doing now. They're taking office buildings, nursing homes, schools, and repurposing them into housing. And it's not always possible, but it sometimes is. This is older, affordable, elderly housing. You can see it's on 2 floors. I put it in because that's not the way to do it anymore. I'll show you a slide in a minute. This is single-family homes in Wallingford, 80 of them, Old Oak Village, right near the former Oakdale Theater. I don't know what they're calling it these days. $1,600 square foot homes. Remember when we used to create start homes? 30% of these are affordable. They're freestanding condos, that 6-acre strip around the house. You can plant whatever you want, and the rest of the area is common and taken care of by the property manager, which is the Wallingford Housing Authority. This is new in orange. I put this on there just to show you in contrast to the South Windsor elderly housing. The first floor units here are for elderly and disabled people, and the second and third floors are single units, 2 and 3 bedrooms. Beautifully done housing in orange, just opened. Key factors to remember. Housing creation isn't easy. And we all have to recognize that. We call people who stand up and oppose housing creation NIMBYs, not in my backyard. I don't look at them that way. I don't look at them as villains. Because think about it. When most people buy a house, they write the biggest check they'll ever write in their life. And it's not irrational for them to be concerned how this is going to affect their family, their neighborhood. Everything's tied up in that house. Their family security, their kids' education, their retirement. So they may be worried about the wrong things, like I said, school enrollment, crime, all that. But you have to let them be heard. They will not listen to what other people are saying until they feel like their concerns have been addressed and they've been heard. So hopefully this is not a one-off. You can have more town meetings and more community discussions. You want to bring people in. Let them express their concerns. Let them learn what you're learning about it. Because that's the way that really good people on this committee who I've gotten to know, and Matt, and that's the way you're going to get this done. You have to let people express themselves and say, I'm worried about what this is going to mean. I don't know, for all of you who have taken behavioral psychology in college, one of the prime motivators you learn is fear of loss. We fear losing our friends and our family and our home and our quality of life. Well, you can't blame people for fearing that. So they need a chance to express themselves and learn, and they need to be heard, because then they'll listen to other people. Other key factors: material, labor, land. Those are the 3 major costs for building. Whether you're building for low-income people or high-income people, those all cost the same. So if you're going to build for really low-income people at 30% of the area median or 50%, you're going to need subsidy. But if you build for upper-income people, you can do mixed-income housing through your inclusionary zoning ordinance, where 80–90% of the units are market rate, and in a community like this, which is so great, and the schools and the services are so terrific, that builder will make enough money on the market rate units that he or she will be able to internally subsidize the affordable units, take lower rents for those, and not need a dime of subsidy. I've seen it. Those of you who want to, I'll point you to Old Saybrook near their train station. Builder did 184 units there. 37 of them are affordable, and he didn't take a dime of subsidy from the state. Okay, so this is eminently possible. Building more supply is a solution. It's the big supply, and it's what Alex was getting at, and one of the people in the audience about price points. It is important to understand that when baby boomers empty nesters who don't want to shovel the snow or rake the leaves anymore, have no place to go in town, but they want to stay in town because their friends and their family and their church and the dock are in town, and they can't sell because they have no place to go, those single-family homes don't go on the market. And so the very few that are on the market get bid up in price. And that drives people out of the purchasing market into the rental market and drives up rental prices. So just by the fact of not creating housing for empty nesters who want to downsize, you're increasing rental prices for workforce people at 30 or 50 or 60% of median income. So it's really good to build at different price points. People at 80 to 100% of median income can't afford to buy or rent up. So what do? They buy or rent down. And they drive up the demand and the price for homes that normally people at 30 or 50% of median could afford. So this is not rocket science. It's really pretty easy to understand. And that's why, you already called it an affordable housing committee or commission. I would normally recommend to a town, just call it a housing committee. And say, we're interested in housing creation for everyone in town. Because everyone needs to be thought of. My son taught me that that's how FDR got Social Security passed. He made Social Security for everyone. So now there were no opponents. Everybody was going to get a piece of the action. Okay? So everyone in town needs to understand that this commission, this town government is thinking about the housing needs of everyone in town. I think that's a good way to continue the conversation. And that's what other towns are doing. Location. Where you put the housing is vital. The SCROG, South Central Regional Council of Governments, that I'm the consultant for, is about to come out with a regional housing plan. Matt knows this, that will identify areas in every town in the region where it could be advantageous to put housing without messing up neighborhoods. And maybe where you can extend sewer lines if you decide to do that. Okay, so watch for that. The final touches are being put on that. That'll be available for all of you to see soon. And then, there are exceptional developers out there. I saw Great Hill. It's beautiful. And there are other beautiful developments and beautiful developers around. And I recommend to towns really good developers who have one common thread. They continue to hold their developments as their own assets. So they have an interest in maintaining the landscaping and make sure plumbing gets fixed, and that becomes an asset to the town. And those are the kind of developers that I would want to see, and a lot of towns are looking for to develop in their towns. Almost done here. Why many towns believe housing creation is good for them? The mayor of Wallingford finished the sentence for me. I said, when 98% of your revenue comes from the property tax, he says, yeah, develop the property. If you can develop property, you can add to your grand list and keep your mill rate down. I was telling MJ earlier that in Woodbridge, and Matt knows this, Woodbridge has a mill rate in the mid-40s. You know why? Because they have only fewer than 3,400 housing units in the whole town. So they don't have a tax base. They have to divide, and they don't provide as many services as Guilford. But their taxes are really high because they don't have enough taxpayers. So build some housing, have more taxpayers, and keep your mill rate down. That's what other towns are doing. Why else do you want it? Well, as we talked about, boomers, downsizing, adult children coming home, not just for Christmas and Easter, but coming over for Sunday dinner. That would be nice to see our kids a little more often, right? Towns are thinking about that. Employers need labor pool. I'm talking to economic development commissions in towns all over the region, because the employers, and you know this, in most towns, if they're small businesses in particular, are operating on pretty narrow profit margins. They can't afford to raise wages to attract workers from other towns, and they can't fill jobs. So towns, I was to the North Branford Economic Development Commission a couple of weeks ago. They have a big Honeywell facility there. They are really interested in building multifamily housing there because Honeywell is having a hard time filling jobs. So another good reason, and needless to say, you have more people in town, there's more customers and clients for those businesses as well. And then, of course, I live in West Hartford, but other towns are finding that if you bring in more people, you have a diverse group, you have a wider variety of restaurants and theater and music and art. The town just gets more interesting. And then, of course, there's the old-fashioned thing of allowing people, just because they don't make a lot of money, to avail themselves of the wonderful things that you all enjoy in Guilford. So it's, kind of old-fashioned to say do the right thing and create some housing for people to move in. But I believe anyway that it is the right thing. Lastly, some of you know about the 830G statute. That allows a developer to buy a piece of property and overcome the existing zoning as long as he makes or she makes 30% at least of the units income restricted. Controversial, but it's resulted in a lot of housing in a lot of towns. Towns that do not create density, zone density, where they want housing, will get more and more 830G proposals. And towns then will have to decide whether they want to fight it in court and spend tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers' fees or allow it to be built. Towns have handled that in different ways, and I can explain that. But the basic point is you can either have a developer come in and want to put the housing where he or she buys the parcel, or you can figure out in your town where you want to zone for density, and you decide where you want the housing. What else to think about? You have to talk about and have a conversation in town. What do you want to build and where do you want to build it? People will say, you'll hear people say, our town is built out. There's no such thing. I tell people, I like to say that if there was such a thing as a town being built out, you'd never see a crane in Manhattan. There aren't a lot of homes built in the 1600s left standing in Manhattan. You knock stuff down and you build other stuff. And you can do that. Interestingly enough, what a lot of towns are looking at, East Hartford just did this, is they're looking at their old 50s, 60s era strip malls. You've seen them, 6, 8 stores, 3 of them are vacant. Towns are learning they can go to the owner of that strip mall and say, hey, when the leases are up on those other 3 stores, how about we talk to the town about rezoning this parcel for multifamily housing? By and large, those are located on commercial strips, bus lines, areas that are not going to change your neighborhood, and where it might be really convenient for people to live in multifamily houses. So towns are thinking about that. Metropolitan Boston just did a whole study about that and found out there's a huge opportunity there. Again, towns are looking at all sorts of repurposing of buildings. And then looking at good developers and not. Matt knows this. There is now operational the Metropolitan Redevelopment Authority. $60 million in bonding authority, technical assistance for towns. So if this town went to MRDA, which is just getting off the ground, and said, we have control of the parcel, or we have an agreement with the developer who has control over the parcel, you can get help for that. So even if you don't have sewers, MRDA can provide you with the capital money to create a wastewater system to provide the density that the developer needs to profitably build housing for you. What else? What are towns doing? I'll finish up. They're having community conversations. I know you guys are doing that already. You should continue that. I think that's what other towns are doing, and they're pulling in more people. Like I said, some of the people who have concerns, pull them in as well. You have a new economic development director. That's really a good idea. Towns that have done the best on housing have economic and community development directors who get up every day and think about what housing do we have and what housing do we need and how are we going to do it. I talked about repurposing schools, strip malls. You have an inclusionary zoning ordinance. You can do floating zones. You got to figure out where it's palatable and where the market is right. And finally, towns are inviting developers to town. Because developers, it's their business. They know what the market is. They know where housing will be successful. A lot of towns will bring a developer to town and say, well, we looked at parcels A, B, and C, what do you think? And the developers say, well, A looks pretty good. B, C, forget about it. But have you thought about D and E? They have an eye for it, okay? So that's a good strategy that some towns are using to great effect. So that's where we are. I can take some questions now. If we don't have time to take your questions, like Alex said, there will be an email address and you can send your questions and we'll get them answered, okay? So any questions now? I answered all of your questions. My wife would have questions, but she was a lawyer.
I have a tough one for you.
Okay, and then 1, 2.
Oh, no, if there's someone else, please.
I'd just like to hear a little more, I mean, I'm all for affordable housing, but we live on the shoreline, and we have granite beneath where we are. So all of this sounds really great, but we have some limitations in terms of developing things in an environmentally conscious way, and also not encouraging the insurance companies to raise our homeowners' insurance any higher because of development along the shoreline.
Right. Well, I mean, that's exactly, that's an important point. You can't build it everywhere. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. We had sewers. And so when I moved to Missouri and upstate New York, and here I found out, well, every place has sewers. Actually, over 100 towns don't have sewers. So what I learned from the people who do wastewater systems is it's very site-specific. And that's a problem for development because it's called pre-development costs, and they're spending their own money and they don't even know if this is going to happen. They have to do engineering work and figure out which way the wastewater is going to flow, and can they develop a system and afford to do it and still build the housing. But you're right, you can't put it everywhere. And that's incumbent upon the town to figure out where it's environmentally sound and it's not going to affect public health, and where people are okay with it. Generally, towns are looking at town center, near the train station. Your train station is, I guess, in a little more of a problematic area that way. So you have to look at other places. Some towns are looking along Route 1, all the way down the shore to Greenwich. I mean, you have to just look at places where it's possible, both public health-wise and environmentally, and where it's going to be politically palatable. You can't plop something down and create a firestorm, because that's not going to, that's going to be counterproductive. So, Alex or someone else? Alex.
So what are other towns that don't have sewers doing?
They are spending some money on, or they're helping developers. See, developers, and MJ and I were just talking about this earlier, developers aren't doing this for charity, right? They got to make a profit. So they have to figure out, can they create a wastewater system? Can they drill wells for water and still do this? That's the advantage of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Authority, which finally got funded last year, because towns that have site control, or like I say, have an agreement with a developer that has site control, they can provide money. $60 million in bonding authority is a lot of money. And they can cover that cost for a developer and, allow that development to go forward. So, towns are looking to, find locations where development can work, and, but it's hard. It's much harder to do it if you don't have sewers. Some towns are looking to extend sewer systems, but, that's expensive too. It generally requires a town referendum and, a lot of spending. Other questions? Well, thanks for hearing me out, and I'll look forward to hanging around afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you, David. So by now you've heard about some of the local and regional challenges and approaches to meeting the housing crisis. And here in Guilford, as we've heard, part of our problem is the geology itself, our beautiful rivers and streams and wetlands and shoreline wetlands and the ledge that's underneath it all. Some of our topography, our clay soil makes it more difficult to just build willy-nilly. So as you can imagine, addressing these kinds of challenges is certainly daunting, and the town formed the new commission to help meet those challenges. As a brand new commission, we are just settling into our new roles and will soon be diving into the work we have before us. As Alex and David and Matt have said, Guilford is changing. There is a housing shortage and an affordability issue we need to address. And in tackling these issues, we will strive to support the values and the needs of the whole Guilford community. And we're really committed to that. Indeed, what we value about living in Guilford is as varied as the number of people who live, work, and visit here. So we cannot tackle this problem alone. We all have the opportunity to join together to participate in thinking about and contributing to how Guilford grows and addressing the housing dilemma. The Commission's work can be summarized into 4 areas: research and recommendations, visioning and planning, facilitating and partnering, and listening, learning, and communicating. An important activity of the Commission is research and recommendation. One step in our research is to take stock of what we have, the inventory of types of houses. We've taken a brief look, and we have all sorts, from townhouses to small starter homes to condominiums and different styles of condominiums, as well as single-family homes. We can identify parcels of land and other properties that are suitable for housing. And we can make recommendations as a commission to the town on appropriate development or conversion opportunities. Importantly, we can identify challenges too, streamlining affordable housing development. Visioning is part of our process. A multi-generational population is essential to the economic vitality and cultural life of the town. We realize that this high cost of housing and the shortage of appropriately sized and appropriately priced housing impacts the town's ability to attract and retain the variety of people that make Guilford such a wonderful place to live. So as a commission, we will assist the town, developers, and homeowners navigate the resources, regulations, and processes to create an effective diversity of housing stock. We will encourage developers to come to Guilford and build, and not just market rate housing, but housing for us all. So we as a commission and as a town need to be visionary and ambitious, as well as realistic and practical. It's not so much a problem of putting square pegs into round holes or not putting square pegs into round holes, as it is as to envisioning what we want our town to look like and how we can meet this crisis. And the dull word for all of that is planning. I'm a minister, so I use visioning a lot. So anyway, planning is the government word. We want to facilitate the creation of a wide variety of homes. Homes in a variety of styles that serve a span of life points and changing needs and size of households. Homes that are cost appropriate, that offer a range of options for rental or home ownership. Homes in an array of locations such as in-town, transit zones, existing or new neighborhoods, woodlands, and farmlands. An equally important question is, as we strive for these goals, how will development impact the look and feel of the town we love? And the answer to this depends a lot on your participation. We want, as a commission, and hope that you do too, to plan responsibly, build sustainably, mitigate negative impact on the environment, and find a balance with economic development that serves and enhances our community. How do we fund this? Available financing is critical. When it comes to building affordable homes, traditional construction loans aren't as feasible, i.e. profitable. We will try to maximize the state funds and programs and other programs that are coming online that help municipalities and developers defray the costs of development. Here are a few of the state funding resources. I'm not going to read them to you. And these are a few of the programs that the state will fund. So some of the land acquisition and pre-development funding costs can be mitigated. Other resources available to create affordable homes may come from the town in the form of land it has acquired for municipal purposes. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, newly established, will be funded by a fee in lieu, which is a charge to be paid if developers, for whatever reason, can't build affordable housing into their projects. And finally, private grants are also available. As part of our commission work, we will assist the town and its departments and commissions in developing appropriate incentives to make it more feasible for developers to build affordable homes in Guilford. And I think in this, Matt is our guru. He seems to be way ahead of the curve on some of these incentives. We can also partner with not-for-profit organizations concerned with housing. And I think we heard from someone about a business looking for housing, to build housing. I think we had teacher housing, and now we have another in North Branford, a corporation looking to build affordable homes to attract people. What can we do as a town and as individuals to more quickly provide affordable homes and alleviate the housing shortage? In line with prior and ongoing efforts to meet our housing needs, the town and commission will encourage land and homeowners, as well as developers, to consider the many options available. Such short and long-term options include, on the short-term side, things like accessory dwelling units, building starter homes, adding to existing senior housing and housing for those with accessibility needs. And I'll just point out to you here that there are 100 units of that housing in Guilford, and there's a waiting list of 50. Is it 100 or is it 2? It's maybe more than that. There is a waiting list of about 50 people for each of the two situations, complexes. We could permit more 2- and 3-family structures. We could encourage cluster and neighborhood development. And on the longer term, we can address the infrastructure, sewer and water supply systems. Adding locations for retail, restaurants, and entertainments outside of the town center is also of interest to a lot of people. I hear all the time of folks in the North Guilford area going to North Branford or up to Durham because it's closer than coming downtown to go to the post office or do their shopping or go to a restaurant. We will continue to listen, learn, and to communicate primarily through our community conversations that are so vital to understanding the needs of the people who live and work in Guilford. We will listen to how housing availability and costs impact our businesses and economic health and stability within the town. And we will continue our series called Conversations with Developers, where we learn about the successes developers have had in creating affordable housing, as well as about the issues and challenges they consider when looking at their Guilford for their projects. And we will continue to hold public forums like this one and encourage public engagement and participation. Finally, we will also share information through our website and other means. We do have our website up, and we're beginning to populate it with some documents that are going to have interesting information for you all, and our schedule of meetings, and how to reach out to us through email or even our phone numbers. So in wrapping up, I'd like to say, come join us in planning Guilford's future. We've all learned tonight that to remain a vibrant, multi-generational, family-oriented community, Guilford must offer a variety of types and sizes of housing at a range of price points suitable for every household size and income level. We hope you will join us in this all-important effort to ensure that as Guilford grows, it continues to flourish as the vibrant, multi-generational, family-oriented community that we love. And I know that's repetitive, but it is, I think, what is the most attractive feature of Guilford. So what do you think? You've heard quite a bit from us tonight, and we'd like to hear more from you before we wind up. So please return to your original small groups and come up with any questions that matter most to you, and we will take them into consideration as we move forward. Alex will, I think we'll have about 15 minutes, and then Alex will gather us back to share thoughts and questions.
5 minutes.
Oh.
5 or 10 minutes to discuss, and then we'll have another 10 or 15 minutes to share. Yeah, so you mentioned We want to hear about what the members of our community think. And we're not going to be able to answer all of your questions tonight, or probably most of them. But we want to hear your concerns. We want to hear your reaction. So can I get a volunteer to share something that you, in your small group, discussed? Yes.
My name is Chris. And I just want to comment, not really share out what we talked about, because we talked about so many things, but I really appreciated you showing us,
David Fink.
Yeah, I appreciated you showing us what other towns have and the keeping, you know, a lot of what their town is trying to do, keeping the looks of it, whatever, and explaining more about what affordable housing, you know, looks like.
David's awesome.
We came,
He's been doing this
I
for a
came
long
for
time. It's
information,
great.
and I got a ton of information. And then I also liked how you, I don't know if it was strategic, but you spaced out your commission people to be all around the room.
Intentionally, yes.
Yeah, I hope so. That's what a good teacher does. And I taught in Guilford for 30 years, so I know. And so just having Barbara
who was
in
awesome.
our group, it was just really nice to just be able to tell her she was taking notes, and we all had a variety of ideas, and I just appreciate the way this was run, so
Thank you.
That's where David.
Can we get someone else who might share something that you discussed in the group? Yes, sir.
We talked about two things. One is...
And your name again?
Roger Joyce, also a planning and zoning commissioner. Two things. One is the critical importance of forums like this, just the public input, and to learn as much as we can from fellow residents to guide us. And the second goes back to David as well. We're not aware, I'm not aware of what's going on in other municipalities around the state on this topic. But there are obvious success stories. So we need to know more about how other communities have achieved their affordable housing, because it's not easy, as we know. So if we know more about those success stories and apply them here through public input and agreement and our commissions and the board of selectmen, we can do it too.
Love that can-do positivity. It is possible to make progress.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, please.
I think she wrote it down anyway, but when David mentioned that, you know, maybe not call the commission affordable housing, because people have an idea that they think they know what it is, to just call it a housing commission might make sense. I don't know if you can change that, but I think it might make sense, because what we talked about was everything.
Yeah.
I mean, really, making it more affordable, but it was really a variety of housing.
I think Matt wants to say something, yeah.
We can fix that pretty easy. It'll be an ordinance change, and we'll take it back to the board of selectmen.
See, like, very responsible development. Is there anyone else who might share something that you guys discussed in your groups? Questions? Yes, in the back, please.
City water in Guilford, that would really facilitate.
That's as expensive as the sewers.
That's the other half of the infrastructure challenge, right?
Yes.
Like, there is the sewers to take it away, but the municipal water being available as well, which does exist in part of the town, but not the entire town. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mike Benham.
Dallas Cowboys fan?
Yeah, unfortunately. On the bright side, I am her husband, so. Yin and yang, you know. What we discussed with one, at least I brought it up, is that in business you have a plan and you have a vision. And if you go and you want people to support it, like your boss or something, you have to have a plan and say, what does this look like if everything goes right 10 years from now? And I don't know what that is, but that's what you guys should be. You talk about vision.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have a vision and you can show us what it is, or at least in part show us what it is, people will buy into it. But right now, it's kind of this amorphous thing. Like you do a little thing here and a little thing there. Trust us, it'll end up being okay. What's the vision
You
for
want
10 years?
a clearer vision, yeah. And a vital step to that is listening to what the community wants, the community's values, the community's priorities. This is part of the process of building that vision that then we can give back to the community, obviously with Matt and the Board of Selectmen's approval, because they are the leaders of our community.
My comment on that as well. I'd like to point out, it's a great question. 10 years ago, there was an update to the town's plan of conservation and development. It's a very global document. Mary Jo chaired that steering committee. So it's up for a rewrite for next year. So the committee has been formed. I'm serving on that committee to start reviewing all of this. So there'll be a lot of public comment through that forum as well, not just this, but that as well, to talk about everything from affordable housing to economic development, environmental concerns and coastal resiliency. All of that's going to be in this document. So it's going to be, in the next year, there's going to be a lot of conversations going on a lot of topics, and hopefully leading to that vision. And coincidentally, it is a 10-year vision. That's just what we look at, which we think is important to, update and get rolling again and incorporate a lot of these new more current needs that we have.
These are interconnected issues. Yes?
I have a question about how closely the commission and the planning and zoning people work together. Because they're working on like a micro problem with zoning something now, but we're talking about looking at a bigger picture. How can the two groups work a little bit more in concert?
Well, it's not just planning and zoning, it's also the EDC, the Economic Development Committee. The various arms of the town all need to coordinate. And that is something that we look to Matt to help us to do, because Matt understands, just going to suck up to Matt now, because Matt understands that this is an important issue. You heard him talking earlier, and he has spoken to his department managers and to the various commissions and committees in town, because you're right, we do need to coordinate. We, as this commission, trust that planning and zoning is an incredibly important institution in this town. The zoning changes are something that they not only implement, but they get to monitor and they get to talk back to us so that we can address that. We do have a liaison from planning and zoning on our commission so that we are always in contact. All right. Yes, I saw. So, to tie us up, Christy again.
All right, so thank you. Thank you all for coming and listening and participating. We hope that you've signed up for our email list or taken our QR code here and have our email list and can be in touch with us that way. We will not send you anything unless you have subscribed, if you will, by signing up and giving us your email list, your email address. So drop us a line, even if it's just to say, put me on your email list. That's great. Send us your questions. We will be posting on our website our events and keeping updates there. And if you want to join in any of the community conversations, we will be continuing to host those around the community, in neighborhoods, in interest groups, affinity groups, and in public forums like this. I do want to say also that we have, now I've just lost the cat out my tongue. I did want to say one thing about planning and zoning. It is because of our geology that a lot of times we get kind of a bump back. And for instance of that is having a parcel, the town has a parcel of land where we thought we could get 11 units, it could only get 9 units. You know, so we have very real challenges to overcome in this. And so it's not just where will it look good on the map, and here are our, and we have some depictions of where our affordable housing is now. But it's also what the land itself can bear, and so we are working very closely with the other town departments to determine what parcels will work, what won't work, and then to look for that money so that we can do perhaps some of that pre-development work or work with a developer and support him or her in doing that pre-development work that will determine where the housing can go. So the visioning is not straightforward. And if you want to get involved in any of this and this visioning process, you know, please reach out to us, sign up for our emails, and we will welcome you to our meetings. Thank you.